Hello and welcome to Ward Talk, CTN's look at the political scene in Ann Arbor. I'm your host, Bonnie Gabowitz. We'll be discussing issues and solutions with the City Council members from our 5 wards on the 3rd Wednesday of each month. Joining us is Chip Smith from Ward 5. Welcome, Chip.
Thanks for having me back, Bonnie.
And Chip, I believe it's been about a year since we've last talked.
It has. You try to be very good about having all of us in here, and there are 11 of us, so it makes sense to come in once a year. It feels like it's been too long.
And so let's just review, since it has been a while, let's just review how many years you've been on the council, what your professional background is.
Sure.
And from there, just where you stand with what your work is right now.
So I've been on City Council since 2015. My professional background is I'm a professional urban planner. I work for a large national consulting firm that's based here in Detroit, and I've been doing that for 22 years now.
And how long have you been living in Ann Arbor?
I've been in Ann Arbor since 1995. I moved here to go to graduate school and just started work right out of graduate school. And as your viewers know, it's a wonderful place to live. It's a very easy place to raise a family. And we found ourselves staying and becoming more and more engaged in the community since I've been here.
Which I know has happened to quite a few students. They come back and they stay.
It's very easy to stay,
Yeah.
that's for sure. And we try to make it easy to stay because we want talented young people to stay here, and we want to continue to have that influx of young families into our community, because if we don't, then all of a sudden we have a whole host of issues that are very, very challenging to solve.
And let's back up to several years ago. What made you want to be on the council to begin with?
Well, going back all the way to 2013, which was the first time I had participated in an election outside of grade school, I ran as a
we won't count how many years that is.
3 or 4. I ran as a write-in candidate against the incumbent gentleman named Mike Anglin, who had at that time served 3 terms. And I ran a 10-day campaign. I didn't knock on any doors against a fairly popular incumbent. I got 1,000 votes. I still lost 3-1, but I ran because I didn't think that our council was making well-informed decisions, and I thought that I could make better decisions, and nobody stepped up to challenge him in the primary, which I was disappointed by. So I threw my hat into the ring as a write-in candidate, and then in 2015 I ran as a candidate in the Democratic primary, and I beat him.
So that was so you ran actually on 2 different elections.
Right. Mm-hmm. So in 2015 I ran because I thought my professional background and the fact that I work in local governments all over the state, it brings an expertise that wasn't there at the time, and a professionalism that was lacking, and I thought that was important, and voters agreed with me.
And so that was 4 years ago.
I was reelected in 2017. In both 2015 and 2017, I had a primary challenger and a general election challenger. Mm-hmm. So I won all 4 of those elections.
So basically, this is your 2nd term you're finishing up.
Yes. So we used to have the 2-year terms. Right in the middle of all this in 2017, Ann Arbor voters changed the charter to go to 4-year terms. The term that I am on that will expire in 2020 is that transition from 2 to 4, so it was a 3-year term. Now we only have even year elections, and so this term runs through November of 2020.
Mm-hmm. And so where do you stand now as council member and the upcoming election?
Well, I'll be a council member until November of 2020. I made the announcement at our council meeting this past Monday night that I'm not going to be seeking re-election in 2020. I think it's time for new voices to step up and lead the city. But that doesn't mean I won't be engaged and involved. I think one of the things that, there are a few things that have led me to make this decision, and I think to casual observers, they're shocked that an elected official would choose not to run for re-election.
Well, it just strikes me that you've decided so early that's a year away. So that does seem to be news.
Well, here's how I would explain it. There are three primary reasons for the decision that I made. One is family, and I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I want to be around more with my family, and it's very hard to balance family and city council life. There is the expectation that you're always on the job, and you can't be. It's very hard to balance.
Right. And to point out that council members not only go to the regular weekly meetings, they're also on different committees.
Oh yeah. So
and for someone like you, you have a full-time job plus you have this. So
exactly, and a lot of these commission meetings are at night, and because of my real job, my day job, I have a lot of other night meetings to go to in other communities. So I find myself, gone, between 8 and 10 nights a month, and that's just too much for me to think that I just can't balance that anymore.
And what are the other considerations?
So, the second consideration was when I was running for election in 2015, one of my talking points at that point in time was, I think 2 terms at that point in time would have been 4 years is a good amount of time, and after that, voices can grow stale just because of familiarity. And I thought that I said then that I wouldn't run for more than 2 terms, and I wanted to stick to that. But I think the last and most important reason that people should understand why I made this decision is just the tenor and the tone of the operation of City Council has really declined. It is really...
So when you say that, before you go further, what's the time frame you're seeing when things changed for you that you felt were significant?
So when council changed last November, when we seated a new council.
So there was a whole new makeup.
There's a new makeup, and this isn't necessarily a direct criticism of those new council members. However, some of the new council members have significantly contributed to the change in tone at the table. And what concerns me is it's become hostile. It's become hostile to each other. It's become hostile to the public when somebody comes and speaks about something that these council members don't happen to agree with. It's become hostile in social media. And this hostility extends to an unwillingness to consider ideas that are not necessarily things that you had believed in.
So what you're saying is you wish they were more open-minded?
Well, it's more open-minded, but more professional, more considerate of one another, of the public and of the process. I think our tone at City Council is exactly reflective of what we see in Lansing and in Washington. It's not
a reflection
pleasant.
Of society.
It is, and we are as much as we in Ann Arbor would like to think that we're much different and much better than Washington and Lansing, we're not. This same thing, and I work in local governments all over the state, and municipal governments have all broken down like this. We're not unique in this fact. But I think that has been a big contributing factor that has led me to make this decision.
And what do you think you have contributed to the time that you put in council? What value in general do you think you were able to help us out with?
Well, I think I've been productive for the city in a number of ways. The first is environmentally, being able to move the discussion of sustainability into the forefront. We have, during my time on council, and I'm not going to take credit for the good work that our city administrator, Howard Lazarus, has done, but we've created an Office of Sustainability and Innovation who report directly to the city administrator. We've hired a director of sustainability, Dr. Missy Stoltz, who's fantastic. We've made a lot of progress on everything from we are now in discussions with DTE to build a solar array on our old landfill site at the Wheeler Center in Pittsfield Township that would provide enough electricity for all of our municipal operations.
And if I remember correctly, there was some discussion and disagreement as to where these solar panels should be placed. So that would be a major success story.
It would be, if we can accomplish this on our property out at the Wheeler Center, this would be a tremendous accomplishment for us. We would hopefully be able to do this, and we're still probably a year away from knowing for sure that this is going to happen. But if we're able to do that and get that installed in 2 years, we are ahead of the deadline we set for ourselves for switching all of our municipal operations over to clean and renewable energy. But outside of sustainability, I think that I have had an impact on the city in 2 ways. One is in how we talk about transportation and mobility. It's no longer just about cars. We have a transportation commission now that looks at all modes of transportation: transit, pedestrians, bicyclists.
So we've widened the scope of how we want to improve.
Exactly, and it really is mobility, and it's not car traffic anymore. And the last way that I think that I've been able to influence positively city policy is in talking about affordable housing.
And this has been a big topic for years, and just about every month the issue comes up in our show too. And citizens want to know what's being done, and I know there's a lot of frustration on the parts of many aspects of the population. And in the 1 minute we maybe have left before we have a break, do you see a big shift, or is that just one of those things that just generally are slowly evolving?
Well, I think it's, unfortunately, in my opinion, it's moving much slower than I would like. I think we get caught up in debates that I think are not always intellectually honest about, oh, well, you know, what is affordable? What does it mean? And I think that there is a big part of our city that is very conservative. You know, one of my friends in politics, a former mayor, had first thing he ever told me was, Chip, just remember, on every big issue, the city will fake left and go right. And certainly that, in my experience in politics, is true. And you know, there is a big chunk of our population that just doesn't want more people here.
They don't want change.
Right. And so how do you manage that to make people feel comfortable with change? Sometimes that means you have to go more slowly, that you have to be more inclusive in how you make decisions.
And more deliberating too.
Right.
Well, when we get back, you know, you've touched upon some really important things on your mind, so we'll continue with what's happening with the city when we get back.
Well, great.
Great. We want to hear from you, so please email us questions to ctn@a2gov.org or tweet us at #CTN in Arbor. We're going to take a break now, and we'll be coming back with more from Ward 5 and Chip Smith. Hi, I'm Bonnie Gabowitz, and this is Ward Talk. We're speaking with Chip Smith from Ward 5. We're back, Chip, and you were being very honest with us about where you stand with the changes going on with the council and the makeup and your concerns. You just mentioned before the break the master plan, and we've touched upon it in previous shows, and I know this isn't something that this has to get revised every so many years. So are you, as the council, now looking at the master plan and looking at how to improve it?
We are. We are actually in the process of selecting a consultant to lead the community through the process of updating the plan.
Okay, so let's start with that question. Why do you need a consultant?
Well,
because I know consultants cost money.
So I'll give you a little bit of inside baseball here.
Okay.
the day-to-day work that a planning department does is very much you are engaged in reviewing site plans, talking to people who are doing developments, whether it's on their house or a bigger project. You are constantly being given things to review and permits to issue. For our
So you're talking about construction and remodeling and things like that?
Yeah, right. So anytime you are going to do a project like that, you need site plan review. And so our planning staff is 5 or 6 people that they do that all the time. They work on zoning ordinance revisions. They work on the nuts and bolts of how we set the rules to determine what our city looks like. To add the responsibility of leading a really intense public engagement process and writing a master plan, we don't have enough staff to do that.
And I know the city is very active in putting out questionnaires and asking for citizens to put their 2 cents in. So is that something that you've been doing with the master
the
plan?
engagement part
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the big part of this project. And this is, and I really encourage your viewers to participate in this, whether it's coming to meetings or filling out online surveys or sending your thoughts to the Planning Commission and to City Council. You know, we know who's going to participate. The people that always participate in these projects are the people that really don't want very much change, you know.
So you want to hear from the other people who are more
Who are
open.
satisfied, who are happy.
Yeah, you want to hear from them.
Yes, like tell us why you like it here. Tell us, you know, I mean, it's some very fundamental things. And that's going to be a really big part of shaping, you know, who we evolve into as a community over the next 20 years. And these plans have to be updated every 5 years. We haven't really updated our plans significantly.
Is there a deadline when you have to have it done, or?
There's not a legal
suggestion.
deadline, but so what would happen and what happens in a lot of communities, because this is a big undertaking, and it could potentially lead to major changes in our Unified Development Code, which is our zoning code. But a lot of communities will kind of test the waters to see if the goals and visions of the previous master plan still hold true. And a lot of communities, the Planning Commission goes through the process, says, yep, this is all still accurate. We're going to reaffirm this year. And that's an annual exercise for a Planning Commission. In our case, our plan is so old and consists of so many other plans that are part of it that it really is time to take this big look.
Would you say, in your opinion, that some of the things could have been updated sooner so that you don't have so much to change?
Well,
now?
we have done this. We have done our master plan in such a piecemeal fashion. We have, you know, the Northeast Area Plan, the Downtown Plan, the Sustainability Framework, you know, the Transportation Plan, the Non-Motorized Transportation Plan, the Park and Recreation Master Plan. These are all parts of our master plan. So when you look in the master plan, you have to reference all of these other things. And so when you do an update like this, you are incorporating all of those other goals and visions into this broader master plan for the city.
Which goes back to your statement that you really don't have enough staff to do all the jobs.
Not to essentially perform this update in-house. You know, I think, and this goes to local government in Michigan. If you go to many communities in Ohio or Indiana or Illinois, other Midwestern communities, Pennsylvania, their cities, their municipal governments are better funded than ours are. You know, combination of the state just pays more to support local government, but they also often have more tools to raise revenue. But they have planning staffs that do this in-house.
So is this basically your answer to my question is, why do we need a consultant?
Yes, because we don't have enough people.
Right.
And I think while we have talented people on staff, we really need somebody that thinks outside of the box of how to engage those voices that are not heard and that are typically excluded from this process, so that we understand those positions as well.
So have you chosen a consultant yet?
We have not. There is a task force that has been reviewing and will interview a couple of different firms, and then make a recommendation to council, which I think is coming to us in November. And hopefully we are able to negotiate with the selected consultants and begin the project in January or February.
So would you say this is a 6 to 12 month
Oh,
process?
it's a 12 to 18 month process.
Wow.
It is, there will be more community meetings than you can imagine. There'll be all sorts of different ways for people to participate. I wish I could tell you what they were. You know, my firm did not bid on this job for obvious reasons, but you know, there are going to be some really exciting ways that we try to get people involved in this.
So again, if people can go online, there is a questionnaire available right now? Or
There is
will
not
be?
yet.
There will be.
I'm sure there will be extensive opportunity to participate electronically.
All right. So once that happens, we'll certainly mention it on this show.
Perfect.
Great. And the other topic that is always mentioned in our show, but always seems to be moving forward with news, is the pedestrian safety. So much is being done, and yet there also seems to be some confusion. So take it away.
So that summed up exactly the dilemma that we have in mobility in this city, which is, you know, some kind of conflicting desires. One is to get more people walking and biking and taking transit, and then another of how do we keep traffic flowing and keep delays at a minimum and reduce congestion. And those things are at loggerheads right now. And one of the things that we have been, the city has been much more active on since I've been on council is we are going to make significant improvements to the bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure to encourage walking and biking.
Okay, now here's my question for that. Where do we stand with the money that we have to spend to make these improvements? Is that still a struggle?
Well, money is always a struggle, you know, and I think where we pull this money from, and a lot of this comes from, you know, the local street and bridge millage, sidewalk millage. It comes from different grant sources. We cobbled together a lot of this, but we have been working very hard to make considerable improvements in these areas, and we are. We are going to have our first two-way cycle track in the city of Ann Arbor.
What does that mean?
So that means on William Street downtown, connecting to the west side, we will, from Packard to State, on the north side of William Street is a dedicated, essentially, road for bikes within the roadway. So you will have two-way bike traffic that's separated from vehicle traffic. The bikes will stop at lights, will acknowledge pedestrians just like a car would, but it's, you know, something that is going to take a little getting used to for some people that drive downtown Ann Arbor, but this is a very common piece of bicycle infrastructure across the world. You know, it's not unusual. We are hardly the first Michigan community to do this. Detroit has done this in several places. And one of the things I always like to tell people is if Detroit can figure out how to do these things and pay for them, we certainly can figure this out.
But you would say that your decisions and what to focus on and change and improve is affected by the money available to do it.
And
so that there's always a list of priorities.
Yes, and our priorities are always around schools, you know, to encourage safe walking and biking to school and to discourage neighborhood vehicular traffic to drop kids off at school that's 2 blocks away from your house. We want to make that as safe as possible. And as we've been doing that, you know, there are conflicts, you know, that in making these safety improvements, we are going to have to sacrifice a little bit in delays in our cars. And personally, I'm fine with that. That's a trade-off I'm willing to make. Others in the community, not so much. But I think that is the point of disagreement and friction. And, you know, to me, the solution to make pedestrians safer is not to get pedestrians off of the street, because we want people walking and biking. It's good for public health. It's good for the planet. It's good for our economy. It has all sorts of positive benefits. You know, to trade that to have just free flow of traffic, that doesn't make anybody safer. It doesn't make drivers safer. Ultimately,
but
you give up maybe 40 seconds in your commute.
Right, but it's also giving the message that motorists have more say or more consideration, and you want to kind of even that out.
And we have, 75 years of city planning that has dedicated, urban design to cars going as quickly as they need to go so the traffic flows.
So this is a change in...
It is, and it's not everybody is comfortable with it.
Right.
I get lots of emails saying, oh, you're stealing time from me because I have to wait. Well, I'm willing to make that decision to make it safer for people to walk and bike.
Right. Well, in the minute we have left, let's just go over how the viewers can have access to information about what the progress or lack of progress is, and how they can communicate. Everyone has a neighborhood, a ward that has 2 different representatives.
We do. So
you're Ward 5, but everyone's in a ward number from 1 to 5.
Correct. And if your viewers don't know what ward they're in, they can go to the city's webpage, a2gov.org. Look up, go into the elected officials, and you'll see a city map divided into the 5 wards.
Right, and they can go on the website.
Get our email addresses,
right.
our phone numbers. We're all pretty accessible. For a city our size, it's not as though city council has staff or anybody answering the phones for them. Even the mayor only has a part-time executive assistant. So it's not as though we're inaccessible. Most of us have somewhat semi-regular coffee hours or interactions with the public. Basically, one of my jobs is to listen.
So we want to hear people speaking,
yes,
right?
Right. I mean,
Right.
because I listen, if it's a dumb idea, it doesn't mean I'm not going to say it's a dumb idea. But my job is to listen and to take that input
and represent your
and to try and make the
neighbors.
best policy decision based on what I hear and what I know professionally.
Right.
And I think ultimately that differentiates me from some of my colleagues is I am not simply going to come back and say, well, this is what all of my constituents say. If all of my constituents say something that I think is a really terrible policy decision, I'm going to stand up and say, this is why I think it's a bad policy decision. This is why I am voting this way.
Okay, and I think that's a good way to end our show for today. And I thank you for your wisdom and your opinions, and I wish you luck.
Well, I hope we
year.
get to do this one more time
Okay.
before I'm done being on
Well,
council.
we'll see if we can do that.
Lovely. Thank you
Great.
for having me.
And remember to join us for a new episode every 3rd Wednesday of the month. We want to hear from you, so please email us at ctn@a2gov.org. Attention, Word Talk. You can also follow CTN and ask questions on Twitter at twitter.com/CTN in Arbor. We'll make sure to include your questions. For Ward Talk, I'm Bonnie Gabowitz. Until next month.